The Cabin of the White Raven. It was supposed to be a simple winter hike, four close friends venturing into the familiar, snow-veiled trails of Alaska, seeking peace and challenge in the frozen wilderness. The journey had been planned for months, and the path was one they'd taken before. But nature, unpredictable and merciless, turned on them faster than they could prepare. The snow began falling earlier than forecasted, soft at first, then thick and relentless, turning the world into a white blur of silence and disorientation. With visibility dropping and their GPS devices slowly failing under the cold, they had no choice but to veer off trail in search of shelter. That's when they found it. A cabin in the woods that no one remembered seeing before. It stood crooked between tall, lifeless pines, its roof heavy with untouched snow. The windows were iced over from the inside, the door creaked as it opened, and inside, the air was frozen, untouched by time. The interior was a strange mix of comfort and unease. Old wooden furniture, covered in dust, sat perfectly arranged as if someone had left just moments ago. The fireplace was cold, yet ashes still clung to the edges. Symbols, strange, looping carvings, were etched deep into the walls and door frames, some looking more like scratches than script. They assumed the place had belonged to a hunter, or maybe a ranger long gone, but no records of such a structure existed. That night, as the wind howled like voices trapped in the blizzard, one of the hikers noticed something outside. A figure, tall and still, standing at the edge of the tree line. It wore a cloak the same color as the snow, making it nearly invisible. But its face, if it had one, was a void. No features, no eyes, just shadow where a face should be. When they looked again, it was gone. The next morning, one of the friends was missing. No screams, no sound, just a trail of footsteps in the fresh snow leading toward the forest. And then, nothing. The tracks stopped, as if he had simply vanished into the storm. As the days crept by and the storm refused to relent, the remaining friends found themselves trapped in an endless blizzard, the sky a constant swirl of white and gray. Time began to blur. Sunrise and sunset became indistinguishable, and the cold seemed to hum with something ancient. Then came the birds. At first it was just one, a raven, but not like any they'd seen before. Its feathers were pure white, blending almost perfectly with the snow. It perched silently on a branch near the cabin, never moving, never blinking. Then there were more. 2, then 4, then too many to count, always watching, always silent. The forest, once a haven for adventure, now felt like a stage, and they were being studied by eyes too intelligent to belong to animals. Inside the cabin, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard. Inside was a leather-bound book, brittle and faded with age. The text, written in a language that felt wrong to speak aloud, described an ancient entity known only as the White Raven, a spirit bound to the snow, awakened during a sacred time called the Silence of Ice. It warned of trespassers who dared step into its domain during this period, a season when the land belonged not to the living, but to the forgotten. Panic set in. They tried to leave, but the forest betrayed them. No matter which direction they walked, they returned to the same clearing. Trees rearranged themselves behind their backs. Footprints disappeared. Paths turned to illusions. One by one, they vanished, not with a sound, not with a trace, simply taken by the white beyond the trees. The last thing heard before each disappearance was the low, rhythmic beating of wings and the sound of something heavy moving just behind the veil of snow. The eyes of Dark Mountain. High in the northern range, where the wind howls with teeth and the frost bites through steel, stands Mount Charnel, a towering mass of ice and rock that has devoured more climbers than anyone dares to count. Despite its infamous reputation and the countless tales whispered in climbing circles, a team of veteran mountaineers set out to conquer it. They had planned every detail, studied the terrain, and trusted their experience. But Mount Charnel is not a peak that respects logic. Halfway up the ascent, a snowstorm erupted without warning, too fast, too thick, and too violent to fight against. They had to find shelter or freeze where they stood. That's when they discovered the structure. Hidden behind a ridge, buried under layers of snow and time, was a Cold War-era military outpost. Its door was rusted, the emblem on the concrete faded, but it opened, almost too easily, as if the mountain itself had been waiting for them to enter. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with dust. corridors stretched into darkness. Bunk beds, untouched for decades, stood in silent rows. Yet the lights flickered to life when the main switch was flipped, revealing strange symbols carved into the metal walls. Symbols not part of any known military language. In a locked storage room, they unearthed a box filled with handwritten notes, dated from the 1970s. The entries spoke of entities that do not bleed and repeated warnings to never under any circumstances reopen the mountain gate. Tapes were found next, brittle and nearly ruined. One, still functional, played a recording of human voices crying, whispering, begging. Always the same plea. Don't let it out. Don't let it out. That night, as the storm howled outside, the team heard something else. Knocks. At first faint, then furious. Pounding on the thick steel door. Too fast, too many, not human. Then came a voice, familiar, calm, and impossible. One of the climbers turned pale as the voice matched his own, word for word, calling from the other side of the door, asking to be let in. The longer they stayed inside the shelter, the more wrong everything began to feel. The wind outside no longer sounded natural. It began to resemble whispers. And the air inside, though still and frozen, carried a pressure that made their skin crawl. On the second night, one of the mountaineers reviewed their thermal camera footage, hoping to map any weak spots in the shelter's insulation. But what he found instead made his blood run colder than the ice outside. Slithering across the walls, not seen with the naked eye, was a tall, narrow figure, its heat signature pulsing faintly. It moved not like a person, but like something pretending to be one. And it wasn't alone. Soon, the others began to hear voices calling to them from deeper within the complex. Voices that sounded like friends from home, lost lovers, even family members long gone. They swore they weren't hallucinating. They remembered conversations that never happened, promises whispered in familiar tones, luring them into the halls. Each night, someone unraveled. One climbed into the vents, saying he heard his sister's laughter echoing through them. Another stood outside the sealed door, whispering apologies to someone no one else could see. The entity, if it could be called that, fed on memory, reshaped it, weaponized it. The cold no longer just froze their limbs, it invaded their thoughts, eroding who they were. On the final day, only one camera remained functioning. Its last recording showed a man smiling gently as he walked out into the snow, shirtless, barefoot, whispering, "I'm not cold anymore," over and over again. He vanished beyond the ridge, never to be seen again. Rescue teams arrived weeks later. They found the shelter intact but empty. No bodies, no footprints, just the sound of a radio signal that still broadcasts every night at the exact same hour. Voices call out from the static, voices that match the missing climbers. And they keep asking the same question. Can you let us in now? The beast of VIDRAÇAL. High above a forgotten mountain range, nestled between cliffs that rarely see sunlight in winter, stood the VIDRAÇAL Hotel, an elegant yet curiously empty retreat. Unlike other resorts that shut down during the colder months, VIDRAÇAL remained open year-round, its lights a warm glow in the vast frozen silence. Its reputation was built on whispers, a word-of-mouth destination for reclusive artists, troubled writers, and those who sought not luxury, but isolation. When a young photographer arrived during the heart of a relentless snowstorm, she was its only guest. The lobby was grand, but strangely hollow, with chandeliers that didn't sway and a fireplace that crackled too evenly. The receptionist, a pale man with a perfectly rehearsed smile, handed her a room key and mentioned something odd. "Please don't touch the mirrors, for your safety." She laughed it off, until she noticed every mirror in the building, from hallway walls to closet doors, was draped in white linen. Curious by nature, she began exploring the hotel's endless corridors. The halls stretched longer than the exterior should have allowed, and the more she walked, the more she felt watched, not by cameras or people, but by the building itself. On the third night, while returning to her floor in the elevator, she decided to peek beneath one of the mirror covers. The fabric felt ice cold, brittle in her hands. She lifted it slowly and froze. In the mirror stood a towering figure behind her, too close, with elongated limbs and a face twisted in a permanent snarl. Its eyes glowed silver, like moonlight on broken glass. But when she spun around, the hallway was empty. The lights flickered briefly. Her breath quickened, not from fear alone, but from the sudden drop in temperature. The mirror still held the reflection, now empty, as if the thing had stepped out and chosen not to be seen anymore. The elevator door opened. No one was there to greet her, but she could swear she heard heavy breathing in the walls. Frantic and sleepless, the young photographer dove into the hotel's forgotten archives, hidden behind a rusted door in the basement, a door the staff insisted didn't exist. Inside, she found dust-covered guest books, unsent letters, and yellowed news clippings with headlines blacked out. One brittle folder contained sealed police reports dated back to the early 1960s. It told of a storm much like the one raging now, and a string of violent deaths that shut the hotel down for over 30 years. But the strangest detail lingered in every file. The victims had no external wounds, yet their bones were shattered, as if thrown through solid glass, despite no broken windows ever being found. Local villagers, interviewed in barely legible notes, spoke of an ancient legend. They called it the Beast of VIDRAÇAL, a creature of reflection, one that slips between mirrors like doors and feeds not on flesh, but on identity. Once it learns your image, it begins to wear it, and once your reflection no longer matches your movements, it's already too late. Outside, the blizzard thickened, sealing the roads and drowning all sound in white. The hotel groaned with age, its long abandoned sections revealing fresher footprints than there should have been. The mirrors, once hidden, were now uncovered, one by one. No one admitted removing the sheets. No one admitted seeing the thing move, but it was watching. Every mirror began to hum with static energy. The photographer tried to leave, but the front door was gone. In its place, a wall. Her panic rising, she turned to a large hallway mirror and froze again. Her reflection stood still, too still. Then it smiled first, raised its hand before she did, tilted its head opposite hers. The glass began to crack. A deafening shatter rang out. The mirror went black. The next morning, housekeeping found her room open, the bed untouched, her gear still on the floor, but no sign of her, only the mirrors, clean, uncovered, pristine. And in the mirror by the elevator, her face remains, pressed faintly against the other side of the glass, smiling, watching, waiting.